Well, thank you all for being here to Cup of Gratitude, Conversations to Inspire and Uplift. This was a project of mine last year. I think summer came and things got wonky. No, I don't know. Anyways, so I kind of took a break from it and I am getting back on track. And I am so excited to have Morreen Rukin here as a guest. Morreen and I go back to college days. And so then one day she was up in New Hampshire and we got together for dinner and had fast and wonderful conversations and lots of laughs. And then over the course of the years, I've really kind of discovered we are really kind of built of the same cloth. And when I launched my Cup of Gratitude, Morreen was one of those people I had intended on having be a guest way back. And so here we are. I am excited to have you all here. Thank you for being here, for carving time out for yourself. The intention of this space really is for it to be a warm, uplifting space where we really spend our time talking about gratitude and the benefits of gratitude and how it kind of impacts our lives. And so for people who have not been a part of this, it really is kind of a conversation between Morreen and I, but it also allows other conversations and kind of dialogue. So I'm going to do a quick introduction about myself, and then I'm going to let Morreen introduce herself as well, because as we were talking, I would have totally butchered it. So anyways, so I work with at-risk kids and families full-time, and I am a life coach working with people really around helping them find greater joy in their day-to-day living, battling burnout and mastering mindset. All of those pieces, they can really have the ability to wear us down. And so I host this on a monthly basis, and I have a newsletter that goes out 2 to 3 times a month. I can be found at lisabermanlifecoach.com is my website, and I do have a Facebook page as well. So, and the newsletter, if you're interested in the newsletter, is a great way to kind of stay on top of different programs and resources and things that I'm doing. So, Morreen, why don't you do a little introduction about yourself, and then we will.
Sure. So my name is Morreen Rukin. I am mom to an 18-year-old daughter named Sydney, who is headed off to Northeastern University. So she's going back to my roots in Boston. I'm very excited about that. First by way of Greece for a semester. So that's why I was in New York this morning. I'm an entrepreneur and have 2 companies. You can see the names right behind me here. Creative Restaurant Solutions and Combined Resource Solutions. We help companies create thriving workplaces so that employees get excited about going to work and contributing to whatever the company's goals are. And I also am trustee and board member of our family foundation and carry on our dad's legacy in a couple different areas of philanthropy. So I'm thrilled to be here, and Lisa and I, we go way back, and way back, and just have had some great conversations about life and gratitude and the road bumps that we hit and how to get over them. And so
yes, I think over the past 3 or 4 years, I think it actually really started with Zoom. We started doing Zoom calls, and we would touch base for an hour that turned into 2 hours.
Yes. Sometimes longer than that too.
Yes. So part of what I always like to do is kind of get right to the point of gratitude and kind of dive in on those hard questions first. but I find that it kind of lends to an understanding. So, my question for those, some of you have been here before, is really to have a little bit of a conversation, Maureen, about kind of the role of gratitude in your life, and was there like that for so many people, there's a time and place that they can really kind of identify a struggle that they had or whatever that really kind of helped them really tap into the gratitude and how that impacts their life. And so I guess if you could share a story or two about kind of the role of gratitude in kind of being who you are today.
Sure. So I think gratitude, I became woke to it or awakened to it when my mom died. And that was about 17, 18 years ago. And, I'm a Virgo. I like things. I don't want to say I'm a perfectionist because I'm not, but I'm pretty close. And I like to do for others. And I had a really hard time asking for help. And when my mom passed, it was really challenging. She was my best friend, and I had trouble asking for help at that time. But my therapist told me, you can give the gift to other people of letting them support and help you. And by asking for help or accepting help from others, I learned a way of expressing gratitude. Now, I can't say it sunk in at that time because, you get back to day-to-day life, you go back into old habits. And then fast forward, I think 6 or so years, within a 6-month period, I lost my father, my adopted father, a dear friend's husband, and an aunt. And I had hit rock bottom. I really just, after the 5th death in 6 months, was feeling pretty low. And went back to therapy, and my therapist was kind of like, okay, you're a little thick-skulled. And I thought we talked about letting people help you and, asking for support and accepting support. And I had to go another round of it. And that too enabled me to tap into just expressing to people how much it meant that they were willing to do that. And then 4.5 years ago, I went through a divorce. And I have to say, I put together a divorce board. It was 12 people, all who had a title and a role. And one was VP of Real Estate and Reason. And my friend Julie went and looked at every house with me. My friend Jill was my VP of how do I not screw my child up through this process, because she's an adolescent therapist. And these people, 12 of them, and my sister Deborah, God, she's probably starting to twitch hearing this again, but anytime I needed to reach out, these people were there for me. And I count my blessings every day that there are so many people out there that love me and are willing to support me. And, it's because when you treat people well, they want to treat you well too. And I just think that every night before I go to bed and every morning when I wake up, I count the things that I'm thankful for. And it has just helped me find me again and, get me back to that happy place of just bringing joy and experiencing joy. Mm-hmm. So I would say those are probably the 3 milestones that really woke me up to the importance of gratitude.
Did you have a gratitude practice before that? Some people kind of grow up with gratitude practice, even if it's through prayer. You know what I mean?
No, I didn't. Certainly our parents drilled gratitude into us. And if we didn't say thank you, believe you me, we heard about it.
Right.
Sometimes dial soap in the mouth, things of that nature. But it wasn't as if, going into my adult life, I would certainly say thank you to people, but I think there's a difference between thanking people and feeling gratitude. I feel like gratitude is within. It's a deeper resonation of thanks. Absolutely. And so I like gratitude for me. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my mind, and I feel it in others, my presence, other people's presence. I don't know if that sounds really.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think that there's a real difference between, the obligatory thank you versus that heartfelt gratitude that is kind of lifts you up and buoys you through hard times. So
yeah, I think my real practice with gratitude kicked in when I turned 50. I took the time and I wrote letters, hand wrote letters to about 20 people in my world who have shaped who I am today. And just to let them know I wouldn't be who I am today without them. And I mean, the response, I didn't do it for any response whatsoever, other than I wanted to make sure that before some of these people left this world, that they knew how they shaped and helped shape me. But what a gift that they gave back to me in terms of saying how much that meant to them. So it was, and I try to do that on a yearly basis, is take some time to write some letters.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? So that was kind of a pivotal gratitude practice. And it sounds like that's something that you continue to do. Do you do it like, do you do it just like in that 1 month or 20 days kind of let's go through it, or you just are very intentional and mindful doing it over the course of the year?
I try to do it over the course of the year because I remember sitting down to write the 20 letters. My handwriting is terrible now. And so I'm so used to a computer, and doing 20 letters at once, my hand was a little crampy. So I try like once a month to just identify, and I have a calendar. I still have a paper calendar, old school.
Me
but
too.
I write on my calendar so that I just make sure I carve out the time to do it. Because life passes by, right? It gets busy. And I think unless we set a little bit of intention with gratitude and a way of expressing outward, it's easy to pass up.
Do you have any other gratitude practices, either that you used to practice but don't necessarily anymore, or something that you've started doing, or even things that you've said, that sounds really cool, maybe I'll try that? Like, because I know for my listeners that hearing the different ways of practicing gratitude is always kind of refreshing, because sometimes how you do it gets old and you need something new and something different, or a different way of looking at things. So any old gratitude practices that you've let go of, even though they were helpful at the time?
I don't think I've let go of any. I think if anything, I've gained more.
Wonderful.
Sometimes I mix it up depending upon my surroundings. I am, I start every day before I get out of bed, just somewhat of a meditation, I guess, and just saying, I'm thankful for what I'm facing in the day. Because oftentimes we say, today I have to, right? Today I have to do X, Y, or Z. And I've changed that to today I get to, and it gets me excited. And so that helps me be grateful for what I'm facing in the day, even in a day when I know it's back-to-back Zoom calls from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. That helps me feel thankful for that. Before I go to bed every night, I, again, do another little bit of a meditative piece in my mind and just say, I'm thankful for this interaction with the people here tonight, or I'm thankful that I got to go to New York with my daughter. And I just, again, in my mind, talk myself through the things that I'm thankful for. I am also a big believer. I love hiking. And we have 22 preserves here in Chester County, Pennsylvania, where I live. So there are times I will go out by myself for a 2 to 3 hour hike. And just my whole purpose of the hike is to really recount the things I'm thankful for in my world, the people, the things, what I get to do for my career and my life. And I really just take the time to slow down. Sometimes I'll do that when I'm feeling cranky and I feel like nothing's going right. And, I didn't get this coachy, or if I'm feeling a little salty, I will take myself out for a hike and say, okay, focus solely on what you're grateful for. And most times I come back and feel rejuvenated, let the grouchiness, leave that behind at the preserve.
Right. And being out in nature has just such an amazing way of kind of centering and kind of letting all the ick kind of fall away. So you kind of tackle that ick,
Mhm.
kind of with two different pieces, right? The nature, being outdoors, the fresh air, movement, as well as kind of really working on your mindset around how you look at things. And I think that that's, I I love the today I get to, right? I mean, I think that that is so easy for us to kind of, yeah, gotta do this and that. And right when we kind of look at it as a blessing, I get to A, B,
Mhm.
and C. And so even those hard things are ultimately a blessing in one way or another, and figuring out what that how that is a blessing
Mhm.
is critical. So
Yeah, and it's taking the time to think that way. I mean, I don't know about anybody on this call here, raise your hand. We have to-do lists, right? And the to-do list
yes,
never ends. It just grows. And I actually add things to the to-do list that I've done just so I can feel like I've gotten more finished. But instead of calling it a to-do list, my sister Deborah just raised her hand. Instead of calling it a to-do list, I call it a to-da list.
yes, yes,
Right? It's
yes.
like,
I was just gonna say that. Yes, a
Oh,
to-do list. Yes, yes. Isn't that it is
oh,
a great the things. And so my husband's on the line and I can just nodding his head. So in my journal, right? So one of my practices is I journal every morning. But on a Saturday, after I'm done my journaling, I make my to-do list. So I use lots of little sticky notes.
Yeah.
And my husband laughs at me because he's like, well, what will you really do today? And I can tell you my to-do list that I had for this past weekend. I don't really know that I got anything done, but I can tell you that we did some amazing work in our backyard that was just so, it was so exciting and invigorating to just kind of tackle some of the nasty weeds. So, right, the to-do list is definitely a way of celebrating what you got done, as opposed to beating yourself up for the things that you didn't get.
I have a fun way to get things off your to-do list. So I have a big salt and pepper shaker. It's huge. It's from Think Big in New York City. And when I have a litany of things that I want to do and fun things that I want to do, I will write them all on a slip of paper. And they all take, an hour to 2 hours, write them on a slip of paper and throw them in the jar. And then I'm like, okay, I just go and I pull one out and I say, okay, for the next hour, I have to go do laundry or whatever. And then who knows, the next one might be pulling a slip of paper that says go bake for 2 hours. And it makes it a fun way. And then you're kind of thankful, like, well, this is kind of fun. Again, I get to
A
go and do
scavenger
it.
hunt.
It is. And
Right.
you never know what's coming up next. So
Right.
that's a way that I feel more grateful for what I need to do.
Well, because you make it fun and it's a scavenger hunt, and it's a what do I get to do as opposed to what do I have to do. So
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
very
So
fun.
just get a jar or get, whatever you want. Just
A basket, yeah, it doesn't, right? A box, right? That's a great idea. Yes. What do you call that? What do you call that, Maureen? Do you have a name for the
Jar.
jar?
I don't have a name for it, but I know that when I have chores that I need my daughter to do, if I do it that way, I get less attitude than when I say, go clean your room. So it works fun. It works well.
We'll have to come up with a name for it. I think you got something there.
My $1 million idea.
Go in Shark Tank.
I love Shark Tank. Love Shark Tank.
Yeah.
So what about daily practices? I know kind of morning and evening. I know you're a big journaler. Is gratitude any part of your journaling, or is your journaling more your standard journaling?
When I journal about gratitude, I know I'm not in a good place because it's something I do daily.
Yeah.
And so I know that when I'm feeling off or just not feeling like myself, if I'm writing in my journal, today I am grateful for, so that it means it's something that I can look back on,
Yeah.
which tells me I'm off kilter. So I don't tend to journal about gratitude.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Whereas
Right.
I journal more about feelings,
Yeah.
challenges that I'm encountering,
Right.
things that I'm proud of, that maybe, you know, our parents raised us to be extremely humble. And so really hard to pat myself on the back about things or toot my own horn. And so sometimes I'll just journal about it and say, you know, today I'm really proud about X, Y, or Z, just so that I remember, you know, the accomplishments that we have. You can tell I'm even uncomfortable talking about it right now, because our mom, who was a typical Jewish mother, always told us, don't ever brag, keep it humble, because you'll get a kanahara, which is Yiddish for a curse. So you do what you do because you love what you do, not because you want the accolades.
Right,
And
right.
so I journal about that kind of stuff. I journal trying to sometimes connect with my mom and dad, and, you know, trying to wonder what they would think about the life I'm living. And I journal about my purpose, you know, am I living out my purpose?
Yep. Yeah.
So
isn't that interesting? Because for me, the journaling, gratitude journaling, I do that on as a daily practice. Kind of, I've turned that into, I think there may have been a time where, I did it to help with my own mindset, but I continue to do that kind of on a mostly daily basis. So.
Yeah, I feel like I need to hire someone to burn my journals when I pass, because if my daughter got a hold of them, I feel like, okay, that would not be a good thing. And so, you know, I journaled in there, I think about the fears that I faced when I almost lost my businesses in 2008, and again with COVID. So journaled a lot about the fear that I was feeling, the fear that I felt about going through the divorce, things of that nature. So somebody on this call, please raise your hand and just go ahead and burn my journals when I go. Okay.
Sister's got you covered.
My sister's going to raise her hand. Okay, good. Thanks, Deborah.
Your biological sister. If not, your other sisters will take care of it.
Thanks, Marie.
I gotcha.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask about kind of gratitude practices, or thoughts that they want to share, just kind of from our conversation so far?
I've always liked all of these programs that you've had, Lisa, because I know I learned something new all the time. And even something as simple as, like Maureen said, a jar with tasks, chores, things from my to-do list, and then you pick it out and do it. And because I found myself getting a little lax, I think because it same old, you get into
same old thing. Yeah.
Same old thing. And I was, forgetting it. Like even coming home yesterday, we went to Connecticut for the weekend for my niece's wedding. And, I think I mentioned this before, I envisioned my car being covered by a bed of roses, much like what they put over a winning Kentucky Derby horse. And that protects me. And because I don't like the traffic, although thanks be to God that it wasn't bad in either direction. But I usually, as soon as I get out of the car or park the car, go, thank you for getting us here safely. And I forgot to do that. So the timing of this tonight was just right. The suggestions that Maureen has is great, because I've got plenty of jars. I've got baskets, and I have a lot of things to do. So.
But Patty, don't forget, you have to put fun things in there too. So it has to be a balance of fun things and to-dos.
Okay.
Not just to-dos.
Right. Okay.
Fun things.
Good tip.
Okay.
Fun things are important. Yes.
Yeah.
They are. So, right. And I think, right, Patty, it's always fun to hear different practices and different kind of ways people navigate things. And so it's,
exactly. Yeah.
Maureen's got some fun ideas.
Great ideas.
And I know one of the things that I always, it didn't start out that way, asking guests about a book, but then I did that. and that ended, must have been my second interview because she came on with a book. So, so, so I know Morreen loves to read, and we're always sharing ideas, and sometimes we're like, oh my God, that book was so good. And other times we just exchange ideas on books that we each need to read. So again, if Morreen wouldn't mind sharing kind of a book or two that has really been meaningful to her in the past year or so. Sometimes it goes beyond that. Sometimes the books are about gratitude. Sometimes it's not. It's actually probably never about gratitude. But anyways, I know we talked about one book though the other day or a couple of weeks ago that was a gratitude book. Is that one of the books
here? Yes.
Why don't we talk about, let's talk about that one. So I know she has a handful of books to kind of share here. So because books are always a fun food for thought on how to do things differently. So what's your first one there?
So the first one that I love is this one here. It's called Living Life as a Thank You. And it's the transformative power of daily gratitude. And what I love about it is sometimes I can just open up to a page. I have not read the whole book from front to back, but it's a book where you can literally just turn to a section. And this is in the aftermath of the hurricane, giving back in gratitude, or, turning the daily commute into a gratitude workout. And so you can just read 2 pages and have an idea or a tip on living life as a thank you. And I've given this book out as a gift to many, many people. And they've all said thank you. They love it. So.
That is a wonderful book. So that
you had it. You already had it. So I wasn't telling you anything new when I suggested that book. So
no, right. I had, yeah.
And then I have 2 books that when I was really trying to figure out who I am again, post-divorce, I just, I didn't feel like myself in my marriage. I was really stifled. And, after 18 years of that, you kind of lose who you are. And so I took myself away on a week actually in Chesterton, Maryland, to this rustic cabin on the Chesapeake by myself. And I read this book here, The Crossroads of Should and Must, Find and Follow Your Passion. And I realized part of the reason I had lost my zest, I guess is the word, for gratitude, because I was feeling pretty down and beaten, was I was living a life of shoulds, right? I should do this, right? I should make sure that I'm the responsible one. I should. And it really took a lot of the joy out of. And it just took away who I was, because I didn't really know what's my purpose. What am I intended to do in my time here on this earth? And in here, what I love about this book, it's not your typical book. So I'm going to try and find a page to show a good example of, okay, this is the kind of book it is. Right? I love books that have color in them. I love books that, this page here was so integral. I spent about 2 days of my time down in Chesterton. It has a whole bunch of questions. Who am I to explore such selfish interests? Like, what do you mean? Like, I could do what I want to do and what I feel like I must do. And journals. I mean, I went through, I think, 2 journals on this week-long trip. But what if I want to grow within a company? If I want to choose a must, when do I start? Like, it really, really helped me get back to a place of who I am, who I want to be. And then I just started to feel grateful that I even have the capacity and ability to do that and figure that out. And it wasn't alone. Believe you me, I had lots of friends that I would talk through these questions with, and certainly my therapist. And I love this book. It just really helps you figure out who you are and what your passions are. And I think even just doing that, you tend to be more grateful about the life that you choose to live and that you get to live. And then I love Brene Brown. She's one of my favorites. The Gifts of Imperfection. And you know what? We're all imperfect. And I told you earlier, I'm a Virgo, so a little challenging to admit that I'm imperfect, but you know, I am. I've got lots of
Perfectly imperfect.
perfectly imperfect, yes. So that one there, a little bit harder to swallow because you do have to face some of your imperfections and admit to it. But again, journal, lots of thought-provoking questions in there. And lastly, one of my all-time favorite books, I've read it 2 or 3 times, maybe even 3 or 4 times at this point, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. I don't know if we've ever talked about this one, Lisa, but
I don't.
yeah, it's just a story about a man who is a little bit lost on his journey, and he meets this character named Socrates, and Socrates puts him through a bunch of challenges and helps him figure out his journey. And you know, he goes through some pretty intense struggles, and I love it. There are other sequels to it, but the first one is my all-time favorite, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's really, really good. So that's my book. Those are my book club recommendations.
Those are your books.
This one says Oprah's. Oprah's. It does not say Morreen's, but that's okay.
Yes, finding good books. That gratitude book is the thank yous is definitely a fun. There's another one, 365. Is it 365 thank yous or something along those lines?
65 things to be grateful for, or 3 things. I know, I think I can picture it. I just don't know what the title is.
Yeah, I can picture it, but I can't. I'll look for it later, and I'll have to. I'll get it out there. So, well, you know, it's always fun to hear. Fun. That's not the right word. Inspiring, and I think, and also truly uplifting to hear stories of kind of how gratitude has impacted somebody's life and has kind of lifted them up out of some tough times. And certainly, Morreen, you've had your share of those challenges, and I'm really grateful that you are able to kind of share those challenges and to talk about how the gratitude kind of lifted you up. And it's always interesting to hear kind of how it came to be, right? So some, it's kind of going back to something they did before and they just get reminded. For you, I love it. Your therapist told you to do it. You know?
Yeah. I think part of it too, though, in all candor, and my sister may yell at me later for sharing this vulnerability, but as a child, I was shushed all the time. I was told to be seen and not heard. I have 2 older sisters, Deborah being one of them, that, you know, they were both academically very smart. And I came along and I was this curious kid who just got into everything. And I often got the, why can't you be like your sisters? Why can't you get grades like your sisters? Shush, like to sit there and be seen. And I really, through a lot of deep work, have come to the realization that I'm willing to talk about the struggles and the ups and the downs, because by being vulnerable and sharing that, I have found that other people then are willing to open up to it and share too. And I think only through that, like through that ability to connect with one another, it has been helpful. I think, Lisa, you know, I wrote my program called Creating Your Legacy Through Your Living Eulogy.
Yes.
Right. And through that, I do share pretty deeply my story of being a child and growing up, and the gift my dad gave me in asking me to become trustee of the foundation. But what I have found through that is others have given me the gift by attending and then telling me, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to my father in 30 years. And you sharing your story, I called my father and I'm going to go meet him after 30 years of no connection. Or I wanted to retire for the past 6-7 years, but I don't know what's my purpose. Like, who am I? What am I intended to do? And it gave them the courage to go do it. And so I am so grateful that I get the opportunity now to use my voice to help others find their voice and help them find who they're intended to be, that best version of themselves. So yeah, I feel really fortunate that I get to do this stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to chat. So.
I thought I saw, David, did you have a question earlier when Lisa asked about questions? I saw you took yourself off mute.
You are extremely observant. I had written just something down about like the difference, what a difference a word makes in your approach, right? The to do, to da, but also the have to, get to.
Yes.
And it reminded me of it's very easy for me to pick out when I hear from someone else when they are using words that are self-defeating or that are not putting them in a good position to achieve, like, this I can't do it. And I hear my daughter constantly, oh, I can't do it. And this key word of yet that I pop in there afterward
I
is
love
just
it.
like little lift of hope, right? Versus just this defeated. So I hope she's grateful that I'm there for her to change her mindset about it in just a 3-letter word. But I wonder, but I really don't, how well I recognize when I'm saying these things that are defeating, and I would be grateful for an audience of someone else to lift me up when I'm, and I do have a number of people in my life who do that, and I'm recognizing it's the time when you're alone and you don't have the sounding board that you can get yourself into this negative spiral.
Right.
So that's why it's so important to have supportive, a support network and people who aren't going to, tear you down. They see like promise in you. So that's more than I expected to share.
Well, thank you for sharing, David, because I think that is so important, is right, those little ways that we can kind of shift that thinking. So I get to, or right, if it's I can't yet, right? Well, anyways,
I love that.
That didn't come out right. But anyways, but I think you're right. We all struggle with kind of that mindset stuff, and mindset work is definitely one of those pieces that can kind of, right, it buoys you up to get through those hard times, and you can look at things in a very different way that ultimately brings about greater success. It's instead of I can't, how can I? That's kind of always one of my favorite reframes, as well as the one that Morreen brought about, that today I get to. And I think that it is in those quiet moments where it's easy to get kind of caught in that spiral of negative thinking. And I know for me, when I feel that happening, that's when kind of I use journaling to kind of work through it, to understand it. But it's also when it's having that awareness. So David, if you're having that awareness that you're in that space, you already have the tools. I know you have the tools based on how you're kind of coaching your daughter, right? So you have those tools, you get that. It's human nature to kind of do that spiral. And then you just have to kind of reframe and find those ways to reframe. I have to do that every time I go out and run. Man.
Lisa loves running. Well,
actually, wait, I do. Wait. So I used to run and I hated running. And now I like the end result, which is feeling accomplished, getting the exercise, fresh air, it still can be a challenge, but instead of I can't do this, it's just get through it. If you know, and so I think most people have to consciously reframe things. I know on a daily basis I do. Well, Maureen, you must on a daily.
Oh, I
right?
do, because I think to myself too now, I'm in my mid-50s and I exercise 5-6 days a week. And I think to myself, there are people my age that can't do this, right? So I think to myself, how fortunate am I that I am healthy, that I can do this and that I have the energy and the stamina to do it. Now, I can't run anymore at this point because it just does not make my body feel good.
Right.
But there are other things that I do that I love to push myself and give me that same kind of feeling. But I feel thankful.
Right. And it's different for every person, but I think that it is kind of, there are times where just working through that mindset and the stories we tell ourselves that shift our thinking so that we can be more successful, so that we can live more joyfully. We can, it's easier to tap into the gratitude. So,
and I think the other piece too is recognizing what of those stories are old stories that we hold on to, right? And absolutely. I think there were so many of them that when I think about post-divorce and going through the journey that I went through, so many of the stories I told myself were stories from childhood. Right? You shouldn't speak up because nobody wants to hear what you have to say. You're not worthy of being loved. I mean, there were so many things that were old stories. And when I finally had that time to actually sit and be peaceful and be able to say, oh, right, you're trying to derail me again. And that story is so old news. And again, this book here really helped me figure out a lot of what those stories were. And being able to tell those stories to F off, literally. There were times, that's what I said. I'm sorry, I'm not going to say the word. But there were times I literally would be like, done with you. It's time for you to lay to rest. And I actually went to a few yoga retreats that had a labyrinth. And the idea of the labyrinth is that you take a stone or some type of memento, you walk to the center of the labyrinth, and you choose what to let go of. And literally you leave it in the center and you walk yourself out. And that really helped me let go of those old stories and things that were really, they don't serve us well. And they're probably things that we would never say to other people. So why should we say them to ourselves? So,
yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments that they want to share or ask?
Thank you. Go ahead, Sheila.
Thank you for being here. I am so appreciative that everybody was able to make time for themselves to be here. And as always, a pleasure to talk with you, Maureen. I treasure our chats. So
I do too. And I am grateful for that night in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where we closed. I don't remember the name of the restaurant, but I know we closed it because we just got wrapped up in such a conversation. And we had never really sat down and talked like that.
No, we never had. No. Yep. Yeah. It was up at the Wentworth.
Yes, yeah, right. I don't know why I always.
And then we ran into old hockey players, old UNH hockey players.
Oh my God.
That was very entertaining. Sheila, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes. I can hear you.
Okay. No, I just tuned in like a second ago. I got in really late. So I am a little bit like, I wouldn't even know what to ask at this point. My brother sent this link to me saying, I'm in a situation where I'm trying to decide about getting back together with my husband. At this moment we're separated, and I'm just trying to take in all the good information about, I'm just trying to get clarity about how, where he's at with all this and where I'm at. And I think we're in discussions right now. anyway, so it's, I don't know if it's anything you guys can do for me, really. It's like,
Right.
you know,
So Sheila, this call will be recorded. And so I can always, if you, I'm trying to think of the best way. Because if you, I can always send this, I can always
Okay.
send this call to you, Sheila. Do you want to give me your email address? And then when it's recorded, I can send it to you?
that'd be great.
Yeah. What's your
Okay.
email?
I'll give you one of mine. I have a bunch
Yeah.
of them. So I'll give you mine. Okay, it's KAT
Yep.
ERN
ERN.
DAHL
Yep.
at AOL.
At AOL.com.
Right. Yes.
I will get this out to you, Sheila. It might not be tonight, it might be tomorrow
Yeah.
night, but I will get this out to you. It
Oh,
will be a recorded call. Yep. So
yeah, I mean, there's a reason I tuned in, so I'm sure there's something I need to hear, and I'd love to hear it. So
there have
I have
been
a
some
suggestion.
really wonderful nuggets. What was that, Maureen?
I have a suggestion for Sheila
Yes.
because was in somewhat of a similar situation, and as it ties into gratitude, which is our topic tonight, perhaps taking the time to write out a list of the things that you are grateful for as it relates to your husband and or your relationship with your husband or both, and then a list of things that you are not grateful for, the things that you wish were different, that you want to manifest changing, or that you want to let go of. And then take a look at those two lists and see how balanced are they, how probable are they, how much effort, energy, and time and love and those types of things that you and he, and maybe he does the same activity, and then it might help you gain some clarity as to
Yes.
whether it is meant to be or whether it is not.
right. I like that.
Yes.
Yep.
Wonderful.
I mean, that's why I'm doing this. And the gratitude, that's what appealed to me, because every day, especially in the beginning, I figured out what am I grateful for, because it kept me in the game,
Right.
knowing that people love me and that I love myself. And here I can look at my life in a different way. And, instead of just the old stories or the bad stories or whatever he was trying to tell me about his story, how much was I willing to take on the responsibility of his story,
Yeah.
We just talked about stories, right? In terms of old stories,
Yeah.
bad stories, and letting them go.
Yes, Sheila,
Yeah.
I think you will, right, there's a lot of really great tidbits over the course of our conversation, so I will
Okay.
email that out to you, absolutely. So
Much. Appreciate it. It's great.
Yes.
You're another godsend in my life. There's many. So,
She
really.
is a godsend, isn't she? She's amazing.
Well, I mean, it's coming from everywhere, and even the internet.
And
Mm-hmm.
well, Sheila, I'm so glad that you showed up here, because I think you're right. Like when you show up to something, even just a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
you often get those things that you need from it without knowing what it is
Right.
that you needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, yes, thank you for being here.
All
Deborah,
right.
you had a question?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I just want to thank both of you. I think this was a really beautiful conversation. And first of all, I may be a little bit biased because you're my sister Morreen, but you are incredibly inspiring. And both of you together in your conversation, incredibly inspiring. And I won't go into my story, but Morreen and I talk a lot about these tidbits of information, and she is definitely more grateful in her life than I have had the ability to implement. But with your push, Morreen, I have started that practice, and I do get to do things as opposed to have to do things. And it's changed a lot. So thanks to both of you.
Oh, well, thank you, Deborah. Thank you for being here and for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I'm going to stop recording.